It's just another afternoon on the water off the Westman Islands, southern Iceland. A research boat drifts with its engine suddenly cutted out. A hydrophone was hanging in the cold, green water. Scientists noticed a pod of killer whales were playing under their boat, and different noise from them were clearly coming. After a few moments, something strange happened. A high, thin whistle, then another, then dozens, layered on top of each other, coming in fast from somewhere out in the grey. Immediately, the killer whales stopped making sounds, not a single call or click. Within seconds, the pod turns and leaves, hard, breaking clean out of the water as they go. To most people, the killer whale is the animal that nothing in the ocean runs from. The one that flips great whites, drowns blue whales, and hunts in packs across every ocean on Earth. But is that really the whole story? Indeed, what those whistles belong to will change how you look at the ocean's power rankings forever. They came from a long-finned pilot whale. Globicephala melas, a black, blunt-headed animal in the dolphin family that most people have never heard of and could not pick out of a lineup. And the size difference is not close. A big male killer whale runs 8 meters and 6 tons, roughly the weight of a loaded delivery truck. A big male pilot whale reaches about 6.7 meters and 2 tons, and the females are smaller still, around 4.8 meters and 1,300 kilograms, which is about the weight of a small family car. Put one of each side by side, and there is no fight to discuss. The killer whale has the mass, the teeth, the jaw, and the hunting record. Pilot whales eat squid and fish. They have never been documented killing anything larger than a mackerel. Now here is the part that does not fit. In Icelandic waters, researchers logged these encounters across 14 years and 6 separate regions. In most of them, the killer whales simply moved off. In roughly 1 out of every 3, it turned into a full chase. Pilot whales driving forward at speed, killer whales fleeing ahead of them, both species porpoising, leaving the water entirely with every surfacing, the way animals move when the cost of slowing down is higher than the cost of exhaustion. The same thing has been recorded in northern Norway. And in the Strait of Gibraltar, across more than a decade of observation, pilot whales pursued killer whales and drove them out of the area in every single interaction that got written down. So the question is not whether it happens. It happens on 3 coastlines over decades in front of scientists with cameras. The question is why the ocean's apex predator, an animal with no natural enemies, no rivals, and a documented ability to kill almost anything that swims, turns, and runs from a smaller animal that has never once been recorded, laying a mark on it. To understand what is happening here, you have to stop thinking about teeth, because there is a second, stranger fact sitting underneath this one, and it is the fact that makes the whole thing inside out. Pilot whales are not just unafraid of killer whale sound, they are attracted to it. Play a recording of hunting killer whales into open water, and almost every animal in earshot leave. That is the universal response. Beluga whales scatter, beaked whales dive away and stay away. Sperm whales abandon their feeding dives and come up. It is one of the most reliable behaviors in marine biology. The sound of that predator empties the water. But out of every marine mammal ever tested, only 3 species have been recorded doing the opposite and moving toward it. Humpback whales, short-finned pilot whales, and these ones. Why would any animal on Earth evolve to swim toward the sound of the thing that eats it? Hold on to that, because the answer is not what it looks like, and it lives inside the pilot whale's head. Look at the front of one. There is no beak, no forehead slope, nothing like the sharp wedge of a dolphin's face. Instead, the skull ends in an enormous rounded bulge that hangs out over the mouth like the bow of a ship. Calves are not born with it. It swells as they age, and in old males it grows so heavy it overhangs the upper lip entirely. That bulge is the melon, and it is not fat in the ordinary sense. The melon is a lens made of specialized waxy lipids, layered so that sound travels through the center at a different speed than it does at the edges. Air force thrust through structures in the nasal passages produces the sound. The melon takes that raw noise and bends it, the same way glass bends light, and throws it out into the water as a directed beam. Every click a pilot whale uses to find a squid in total darkness passes through that organ on the way out for its entire life, and it does not use that instrument alone. Pilot whales are among the most social animals in the ocean. They travel in stable pods of 10 to 50, gather in schools averaging 20 to 90, and have been recorded in herds of several hundred, occasionally more than 1,000 animals moving as one body of water. Those pods are matrilineal, roughly 60% female, and unlike the loose shifting groups of most dolphins, they hold together for decades. Females have been aged to 59 years, males to 46. A pilot whale is born into a family and, in most cases, dies in it. Take a close look at what that means acoustically. 40 animals, 40 melons, 40 voices in overlapping conversation, all day, every day, in water where sound travels 4.5 times faster than it does in air and carries for kilometers without weakening much. A pilot whale pod is not a group of animals that happens to make noise. It is a single distributed sound source, and it is loud, which brings us back to the question we left open. In 2012, a team led by the acoustician Charlotte Curé ran an experiment in the Vestfjord basin of northern Norway. They tagged free-swimming, long-finned pilot whales with suction cup recorders, then played them 15-minute recordings of killer whales feeding on herring from a speaker positioned more than 2 kilometers away. The pilot whales turned and went straight for it. 7 years later, the same team went back with a harder version of the question. This time, they played 2 different killer whale recordings. One was the local, familiar fish-eating population, animals that eat herring and pose no threat to a pilot whale whatsoever, but do compete for the same water. The other was an unfamiliar mammal-eating population, a genuine predator. The pilot whales approached both, but they approached them completely differently. To the fish eaters, they came in loud. Separate groups merged together. Overall group size went up, calling rate went up, and they moved on the sound source as a crowd, announcing themselves the entire way. To the mammal eaters, they went quiet. They stopped foraging, they pulled tight, they spent less time near the surface, and they still approached, but silently, low, controlled. Researchers described it as a cryptic approach. Get close enough to assess the threat without telling the threat you are coming. That is the answer to the loop we opened. Pilot whales are not fearless. They are discriminating. They can tell one killer whale population from another by voice alone, the way you can tell a stranger's footsteps from a friend's, and they choose an entirely different strategy for each. So, what exactly allowed a 2-ton squid eater to develop that kind of nerve? The answer lies in what it does for a living, 1,200 meters down, in the dark, roughly 40 times a day. Off the coast of Tenerife, in the Canary Islands, a team led by Natasha Aguilar de Soto attached sound and movement tags to 23 pilot whales and recorded what they actually do below the surface. What came back rewrote what biologists thought a deep diving mammal was. Every other deep diver in the ocean solves the same problem the same way. Go slow. Oxygen is finite, drag rises with the square of speed, and every extra meter per second costs you time at the bottom. Sperm whales glide, beaked whales descend at a walking pace and stay down for over an hour. The entire strategy of the deep is patience. Pilot whales do not do this. They drop to between 500 and just over 1,000 meters. The deepest recorded on those tags was 1,018 meters, roughly 3 Eiffel Towers stacked end to end, and they stay down about 15 minutes. Then, at the very bottom of the dive, in total blackness, the tag records something that should not be there, a sprint. Bursts of up to 9 meters per second, lasting between 19 and 79 seconds, angled downward, ending in the rapid click sequence that means a predator is closing on prey. 9 meters per second is over 30 kilometers an hour. That is roughly 4 times the speed of the fastest human swimmer who has ever lived, generated by a 2-ton animal that has been holding its breath for 10 minutes at a pressure 100 times greater than the air you are breathing right now. Those sprints burn between 10 and 36% of the entire drag cost of the dive in under 80 seconds. The researchers gave the paper a title that has stuck to the species ever since: Cheetahs of the Deep Sea. And like a cheetah, they lose. Roughly 40% of those attempts come back empty. The energy budget only allows 1 or 2 shots per dive. Miss both, and the whole descent was for nothing. You surface with an oxygen debt and no meal, and you have to lie at the surface breathing hard before you can try again. This is the animal we are talking about, not a placid squid grazer, a high-risk, high-cost, all-or-nothing hunter that has evolved to accept enormous energetic gambles as a normal Tuesday. But that was a hunting behavior, not a fighting one, and no pilot whale has ever been recorded attacking a killer whale. So the central question is still unanswered. What does the killer whale actually think is coming? For a long time, nobody could test it. You cannot ask a killer whale what it is afraid of, and you cannot conjure a pilot whale pod on demand. Every observation was opportunistic. A chase spotted from a boat, a chance recording, a note in a field log. Then a team decided to build the encounter from scratch. Between June and August across 3 summers, 2021 to 2023, researchers worked the herring grounds around Westman Islands in South Iceland. Working from a small, rigid inflatable, they approached killer whales and placed multi-sensor digital tags on their backs, pressure sensors, accelerometers, magnetometers, GPS, and 2 hydrophones, all held on by suction cups. Then they waited at least 2 hours for the animal to settle. A second boat carried the speaker. It moved 500 to 1,000 meters ahead of the tagged whale and off to one side, cut its engine, and lowered an underwater loudspeaker to 8 meters depth. 8 killer whales were tagged. 15 playbacks were run. Each one was structured identically. 15 minutes of silence to establish a baseline, 15 minutes of sound, 15 minutes of silence afterward. And critically, they did not only play pilot whales, they played a control. The exact same recordings with the pilot whale voices stripped out, leaving only the background hiss amplified to precisely the same loudness. If the killer whales reacted to noise in general, both would trigger the same response. If they reacted to pilot whales specifically, only one would. The results came out in scientific reports on the 28th of January, 2026. During the control noise, the killer whales largely carried on. 4 of the 5 tested showed no clear reaction. 1 drifted slightly. Nothing changed in their calling, their spacing, or their direction. They heard it, registered it as nothing, and continued. Then the pilot whale sounds went into the water. The tagged whales shifted straight into traveling behavior. Average horizontal speed went from 1.5 meters per second to 2.7, close to double, and the distance covered in each 5-minute window jumped from 450 meters to 800. 4 of the 8 turned directly away from the speaker. 2 were already heading away and simply accelerated. 2 more did not turn but sped up as they passed it. The group changed shape. Individual spacing tightened significantly. The whales lined up shoulder to shoulder and swam in formation, milling. The loose, scattered heads in different directions surfacing of animals that are relaxed dropped away almost entirely. And then there is the sound they made. Across those 8 playbacks, the tags captured 284 clear killer whale calls. 49 of them came in the 15 minutes before the speaker switched on. 220 came during, 15 came after. Rates spiked the moment they heard pilot whales, and researchers noted that a large share of those calls were what the field classifies as variable and aberrant, distorted, off-repertoire. In killer whale acoustics, that pattern is associated with excitement. Then, in the 15 minutes after the sound stopped, 5 of the 8 tagged whales made no sound at all. Not fewer calls, none. That's not even the strangest part. The response the killer whales produced switched to traveling, directed movement away, increased speed, tightened group, then silence is almost identical, point for point, to the response the same population produces when the Navy runs mid-frequency sonar through their habitat. An apex predator with no enemies, hearing a smaller animal that has never harmed it, and producing the behavioral signature of a warship. So far, we've been discussing what the killer whales did, but what happens if you look at what they didn't do? They never porpoised. In real encounters, roughly a third of these interactions end with killer whales leaving the water entirely at every surfacing. In the experiment, not once, because a recording does not follow you. The sound stayed put, and the whales worked that out. They also never left the area. They moved off, they went quiet, they waited, and then they came back to the herring. And there is one more detail buried in the data that is easy to miss. When a whale got a second playback, its reaction was stronger than the first. Faster departure, tighter grouping. The researchers flagged this as possible sensitization. The animals were not habituating to the sound and learning to ignore it. They were getting more reactive. Now hold all of that against the single hardest fact in this entire subject. Across Iceland, Norway, and Gibraltar, across decades of observation, across every recorded chase, every mobbing approach, every high-speed pursuit, there has never been a documented physical attack by a pilot whale on a killer whale. No bite, no ram, no injury, no death, not one. The killer whales are running from something that has never touched them. So why does it work? The honest answer from the people who ran the experiment is that nobody knows for certain. But there are 3 explanations on the table, and each one says something different about how this ocean is actually organized. The first is competition. Both species hunt in the same water. Pilot whales may be driving a competitor off a patch of habitat, not because it is dangerous, but because it is in the way. The problem is that in the places these interactions happen, there is little evidence the 2 species eat the same things. Icelandic killer whales are working herring, pilot whales are working deep squid. The second is mobbing. This is a behavior you have watched 100 times without registering what it was. Crows harassing a hawk, small birds diving on an owl in daylight, screaming, driving it out of the wood. The mobbers cannot kill the predator. They do not need to. They only need to make its presence expensive, remove the surprise, announce the location, and turn a hunting ground into a place not worth staying. Meerkats do it. Songbirds do it across every continent. And the record now suggests that in the North Atlantic, a 2-ton squid hunter does it to the ocean's apex predator. The third possibility is the coldest one, and it may be the most likely. It is not that the killer whales are frightened. It is that leaving is simply cheaper than staying. 40 animals screaming into your habitat at once does not have to be dangerous to be intolerable. It floods the channel you use to find food, coordinate your family, and hold your pod together. If your entire hunting method is sound, and something arrives that fills the water with noise, the rational move is not to fight it. It is to go somewhere quieter. You would expect an apex predator to hold its ground because it can win. In reality, apex predators appear to run the same arithmetic everything else does: cost against benefit, energy against reward. And the ocean's most complete hunter has apparently decided that 40 loud neighbors are not worth the argument. And that calculation is where this stops being a story about whales. Because it turns out the response those killer whales produced has an unexpected use. And this is the part that no wildlife documentary has ever told you. For decades, biologists measuring the impact of human noise on marine mammals have relied on a single comparison. To know whether a ship, an air gun, or a naval sonar is genuinely harming an animal, you measure how it reacts to that sound, and you compare it against how it reacts to its natural predator. The predator response is the yardstick. It is the reference point for real fear, but that method has one blind spot, and the blind spot is the killer whale. It has no predator. There is no natural reference sound. There is nothing in the ocean it is supposed to be afraid of, which means that for the single most acoustically sophisticated hunter in the sea, scientists had no baseline at all against which to measure the noise we are pouring into the water. The pilot whale recordings gave them one. The response profile, the switch to travel, the directed flight, the doubled speed, the tightened formation, the silence afterward is now a documented natural threat response for a species that was previously unmeasurable. Line it up against how the same population behaves under naval sonar, and for the first time, there is a scale to read it on. An unexplained argument between 2 whales, fought over decades in Icelandic water for reasons nobody can fully account for, has become an instrument for measuring what we are doing to the ocean, and that matters more every year. Shipping traffic has been rising steadily for decades. Air guns fired for seismic surveying can be heard across entire ocean basins. Naval exercises push mid-frequency sound through habitat used by species that have spent 30 million years evolving to hunt, navigate, raise young, and hold families together using sound and nothing else. The pilot whales tell us the killer whale is not immune to any of this. It is not deaf to pressure. It leaves when the water gets too loud, exactly like everything else does. It just took an animal a third of its weight, arriving in a crowd, to prove it. Take a close look at what that really means. The most powerful predator in in the ocean does not sit at the top of a hierarchy of teeth. It sits inside a network of sound, alongside animals that can crowd it, outshout it, and move it off ground it had every physical right to hold. The ocean has never been a ranking. It has always been a negotiation. We began with a boat drifting off the Westman Islands, a hydrophone in cold water, and a pod of killer whales going abruptly silent. We can now say what happened in that silence. 8 tagged whales, 15 experiments, 3 summers of work, and a recording no more dangerous than the water it was played into. They heard voices belonging to an animal that has never harmed one of them. They closed ranks, doubled their speed, and left. And the strangest part is that they may not have been afraid at all. They may simply have decided it was not worth it. The next time someone tells you the killer whale fears nothing in the ocean, remember that somewhere south of Iceland, in green water over a herring ground, it is being moved off its own hunting grounds by a crowd of blunt-headed squid hunters who have never once had to throw a punch. So, which explanation are you betting on? Competition, mobbing, or simple noise? And here's the harder one. If you put one adult male killer whale into a closed bay with 40 pilot whales, no pod backup, and no way out, and none of them are allowed to strike first, who leaves that bay? Put it in the comments and tell me why, because this one genuinely splits people. If you got something out of today's dive, give Orca Lab a like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. We go into the water somewhere new every week, and next time we go far deeper than this, because there is a whale that beat the sperm whale's diving record, and almost nobody has ever heard its name. We'll see you in the next dive into the abyss.